Barbara，你的孩子是怎样生的呢？
I was very well prepared for my first baby because I was a nurse and I worked in that hospital where I had decided to give birth. I took Lamaze training. This was back in 1978. My daughter's 36 this year. But what I wasn't prepared for was the inability of the hospital personnel to bend their rules to accommodate my desires. And it was a very hard birth, very long. I went to the hospital way too soon. And then when I wanted to leave, they wouldn't let me leave. So I felt like I was in prison, you know. After about 30 hours, my doctor came in and said that she was going to recommend a cesarean because she just said, you can't do this anymore. You're too weak, you're too tired, and the baby's probably too big, so give up now. You know, and I was like, no, I'm not going to give up. And she started arguing with me. I'm the one having contractions, and I tell her I'm perfectly fine. Just let me eat something and get my energy back, and I'll be fine. And she instead hooked me up to an IV, gave me Pitocin to make the contractions stronger, as if they weren't strong enough, and then sent me to X-ray and actually put me under an X-ray to measure the size of my pelvis and the size of the baby's head. The whole time I was having contractions, it was so painful. But that's because I refused a cesarean, and she was going to prove me wrong. She was going to say, well, this baby's never going to fit through there. But I came back from the X-ray, and now the contractions were really strong and fast and hard. And she looked and she measured, and she came back in and she says, well, your pelvis is big enough to drive a truck through. So I'll let you do this for 2 more hours and that's it. And she just was tired of waiting. And she cranked up the Pitocin, and then the nurses gave me narcotics without my permission. They didn't even ask if I wanted something, and I didn't want anything. And it put me out into I felt terrible. And when I started throwing up because I didn't like my body didn't want the drugs. And to spite her, I had the baby before she came back to the hospital. And a resident caught the baby. And listen to this one. There's a checklist. You know, I go to hospitals all over the world. And most hospitals have a formula. First you do this, then you do that, then you do this, then you do that. And they have to check, the nurses or the doctors have to check everything off. Well, on that resident's checklist was an episiotomy. And he, you know, which is cutting between the vagina and the rectal tissue. And he forgot to do the episiotomy. And so after the baby was born, that's when he cut it, because it was on his checklist. Yeah, he had to, and he even said, I forgot the episiotomy. Cut.
They're crazy.
Yeah. So do you think I was a little angry? But even with all that mistreatment of me, the worst part, Ivy, that just broke my heart, was they held the baby up and said, you had a girl, and I didn't get to smell her, touch her, hold her, kiss her. I didn't get to embrace her. She went immediately to another room and was there for the next 14 hours. And there was nothing.
Almost one day.
There was nothing wrong with her. She was perfect. She was 6 pounds, 12 ounces, absolutely perfect, born on her due date. Nothing wrong. But it was hospital policy to keep the baby until the pediatrician said that she was okay. And it was Sunday night, and the pediatrician wasn't going to come in until Monday morning or afternoon. And so I was denied access to my child. And when I did get her, they brought her into the room, and I took off all her clothes, and I counted her fingers and counted her toes and looked at her kind of strangely misshapen head. I tried to breastfeed her, but she wouldn't breastfeed, and I put her back in her little isolette, put a blanket over her. I got up out of bed, and I took the dresser in the room and put it in front of the door. I actually pushed it in front of the door, and then I took the bed and put it behind the dresser. There were 2 beds in the room, and I put it in there, and then I took the television and put it on top of the bed, and I was like, nobody's getting in here. Nobody's taking this baby away from me, because you were only allowed to have the baby for like an hour. An hour 3 times a day, and that was it, because you had to rest. Who made up these stupid rules? That's what I started thinking right then and there. And it's like, I can't even justify any of it. And I worked in this hospital. And I made a commitment to myself right then, right there. I am never having another baby. As a matter of fact, I'm never having sex again if I can think that I might get pregnant. Because I don't want to go through this torture, this angst. This is worse than any punishment anybody could do.
但是后来又生了2个宝宝，是吧？
I didn't have sex again with that husband. And for pretty much that reason, we divorced. My next husband, 6 years later, he and I were just madly in love, and he kept begging me, please have a baby, please have a baby. I'll do anything for you, please have a baby. And I kept saying, nope, nope, no way. And then one day when I was working in the pediatric clinic, this woman came in, and she was pregnant with her 6th baby. And I just said, which hospital are you having your baby in? And she said, oh, I'm staying at home and I'm having a water birth. And I remember I dropped my pen and I was like, a water what? I said, can you explain that? And she went on to tell me that she's going to sit in a bathtub of warm water and the baby's going to come swimming out. And I laughed and I said, yeah, right.
And you were a nurse.
I was a pediatric nurse, and I had seen hundreds and hundreds of babies in the hospital, and not one of them came out swimming in water. And then she pulled a magazine out of her backpack, and it showed a picture of a woman in a tub, clear glass, with a baby swimming between her legs with the umbilical cord still attached. And I stared at that, and I looked at her, and I stared at that, and I said, can I borrow this? And I put it in my backpack and went home and showed my husband. And I said, if we could do this, I might say yes. And he was like, let's get at it right now. And literally, the night that woman had her baby, I actually helped her set everything up. We became friends. Wow. And I bought the tub. I did everything. I was just so like convinced that this was an okay thing to do. I researched it, and the night that she had her baby, I got pregnant with my second child because I saw how easy it was. And I went home and told my husband, okay, we can do it now. And he was like, hallelujah. And our babies, her son and my son, are exactly to the day 9 months apart.
Wow.
And we're still friends. And it was my birth with my son, Sam. He swam out of me in the dark to Pachelbel on tape. It was surreal compared to that other one with people yelling at me and telling me, and then a doctor violating me, raping me. To fast forward 6 years to this space that was sacred. And I was thanking God and singing praise while I was birthing my baby. So it was 2 different worlds. And I turned to my midwife as I held my baby on my chest, and I said, oh my God, we have got to tell women how easy this is.
真是好有趣啊！因为呢，我记得，我也是2个孩子的妈妈嘛。那虽然2个都是自然分娩的，我没有经历过剖腹产，可是2个经历也是非常的不一样。第一次呢，就是很传统的在医院里，然后呢，我充满了恐惧，我真的是想象不了一个那么大的孩子怎么从那么小一个洞出来，然后真的是非常紧张，非常就是没有自信心，然后呢，就是感觉，我真的是个患者，就是医生、护士、助产师，他们都要一直告诉我应该怎么样，应该怎么样，我完全好像不知道，也心里没有底，不知道自己能不能把这个孩子生出来，有的时候就是想放弃，不知道自己能不能成功。那么后来我还是成功了，还是生出来了啊，然后好像就是生完了就是一件很大事完成了，然后什么也不想了然后当时我还记得我都有点不可思议，我已经是妈妈了吗？好像根本没有那种感觉哈。宝宝也是一下就被别人都抱走了，然后呢好久都没有见到他。那我第2次生产的时候，其实也是中间隔了好几年，中间我就正好了看到了 Barbara 写的书《温柔生产》，然后呢 Barbara 的这一本书我看完了，我对生产的认识完全的颠覆了。这一次呢，我知道女人就是神已经创造我们的身体，就是可以很自然的生产，所以我们可以充满的自信心，相信我们的身体是完美的被设计的，然后可以生产，可以分娩一个孩子。然后我也是在水中很无痛的带着笑容的，然后呢生了我的第2个孩子，真的是完全不一样的一个经历。所以希望妈妈们都有那么美好的一个生产的经历，真的是没有一点的惧怕，完全充满的这种喜乐。
是，我觉得很多妈妈们听到这种完全不怕，如果可能是有点难去想得到，就是所以我觉得真的就是有必要是跟更多的就是过来人就是多聊一聊，了解他们的情况就比较好。我自己也是2个孩子的妈妈，有2个男孩呢。我自己生孩子的时候，其实因为我是从04年就开始做分娩导乐师，所以在我自己生孩子之前，已经陪了就是很多的妈妈们生孩子，所以也看到的就是很多就不同的这种生孩子的经历，大多数也都是在中国，都是在北京。所以当我自己要生孩子的时候，确实这种没有那么的恐惧。其实我是比较的对女人的身体就是有一定的信任，就是我看到了很多例子，如果就是 周围的环境有足够的支持，完了这个孕妈妈有足够的准备，那个时候也相信其实也可以比较的顺利。但是我自己其实生的也不算快，我也是到42周已经就还是没有反应，所以医生也是要求就没有办法，必须得开始催产。催产我们都知道会比较的痛苦一些，那个时候开始催产，所以确实我就生第一个孩子的过程时间也不短，也是挺疼的，但是这种坚持和最后他就是生出来，我抱着他以后这个感觉，这是，哎呀，这完全就是代替不了的。刚才我听到 Barbara 老师在说，就是生完了以后，后来就把那个床就推到这个门口，完了电视还就搬过去。那个时候，其实我自己也是医生说，好，我再给你2个小时，如果你还没有生，那我们就剖。
其实很多妈妈没有想到，剖腹产，也许剖的时候有麻醉药，可是剖完了那好几天，可能几周至少，都还非常疼，很不方便。
所以那个时候，其实我自己就经常也会跟就是我周围的一些孕妈妈，当时我自己也是就是坚定要跟自己去，坚持来做。其实有宫缩的时候，再有疼痛，其实也经常就不断的跟宝宝有一个交流，就是我能感受到你，我知道你在，就一直跟他保持有交流。其实自己的这个感觉和疼痛会减轻很多，帮助很多孕妇去坚持，还记住，其实这是宝宝的生日，对，其实挺美好的。
对，因为可能在社会上面，我们听到很多负面的东西，所以呢，没有那么多的，就是正面的东西来引导我们到这种正确的一个认识。所以呀，我们特别的感谢 Barbara 今天跟我们的分享。我们希望在下一期再跟 Barbara 聊得更深，关于这个自然分娩。好的，谢谢大家。